Hi, everybody. My name is Steve, and I am here with the Movember Foundation. Obviously, we are here talking about men's mental health, and we are here with NHL legend Kevin Stevens.
How are you guys? Good to be out here in Toronto, but tough couple of weeks for you guys. Baseball-wise, I'm saying. Man, tough times, but good times.
Good
So
times.
It was good to watch, I'll tell you that much. I enjoyed every pitch. I watched every pitch. I'm a baseball guy, so it's amazing to watch. It's great theater, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, it was an incredible game. The athletes put so much into it. We were so excited to see it. Toronto was on fire during that time.
I can imagine. I remember in 2004, I was in Boston when the Red Sox won their first. In baseball, there's nothing like baseball. I'll tell you, it's hockey playoffs are great. And I'm a Boston guy, so the Patriots were great and stuff. But when the Red Sox won, there was nothing like it in Boston. Baseball seems to take over, like in the playoffs when the teams are good and they're on a run. It's pretty amazing stuff. But yeah, it's all good. It's game at a time, right? You never know what's going to happen in baseball.
That's it. That's
in
all sports too, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's really in life, right? Is one day at a time. We all have different ways to live, and when we talked about this, the mental health, and I was more in the addiction part of it, but it's all tied together, and it's really what we all deal with is no one knows what the other person's dealing with, and I think the biggest thing about all of this is we have to talk about it, right?
Yeah. So, talking about that, so we saw the baseball, we saw the pressure from the fans. As someone who's a two-time Stanley Cup champion, can you talk about the mental pressure, the pressure that?
Yeah, pressure is hard. Pressure is pressure. Some people deal with it different than others, and I think that's the biggest thing, right? We all deal with different things in our life, and if you're a hockey player, if you're a doctor, you're a janitor, whatever you do, there's pressure, right? And no one knows what the other person's really thinking or how they're dealing with it. And some people deal with it better than others, right? And but it's there. It's everyday life. There's pressure. There's pressure in every part of your life. And being an athlete is, people see it more, so they're there and they can witness it. But it's still all about yourself and you and how you feel. And if you're not feeling right, you got to talk about it.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's something that I think you've done extremely well. And we see that the culture of hockey specifically is shifting, and more players are opening up about addiction and mental health and everything around that. What do you want to see continually going in that?
Yeah, I think it's important to get in front of it, right? It's mental health, addiction, any of that stuff is it's about awareness. It's about, there is help. There is, you don't have to be by yourself. You don't have to, there's all different types of mental health thing, addiction, and the biggest thing I can do is what I'm doing now is talk about it, right? I need to talk about addiction. I got stuck in addiction, and I got hurt. I got stuck on pain medication, and what I do when I go out and people ask me to speak, I just have to tell the truth. I just tell the truth what happened to me. Might not happen to anybody else, but this is what happened to me. It happened to, I made a decision or a choice one night, and it changed the path of my life for 24 years. I was 28 years old, never did a drug, never knew what a drug was, never knew anything. And I was playing for the Penguins, doing 2 Stanley Cups. I was winner going for our third, scored a lot of goals, playoffs, whatever. And I made a choice one night, it's a decision to try cocaine, and it just kind of led. I didn't know. I thought I'd wake up the next day and everything would be the same, but I made that choice. So I think it's important that we get out there and you make the right choice. You have to make the right choices. It's all about decision and choices, and if you're having a problem, get out in front of it and talk about it. The mental health part of it is. It's huge because you need to talk about it. You need to get the proper help you need. And if no one knows you're hurting, and how can anybody help, right?
Yeah, that's very true. And something that we find at Movember is that a lot of men struggle talking about that and getting to that point. So you talking about that so openly has been massive for us. So could you talk a little bit about what recovery looked like from that?
Yeah, it's when I got to the point of recovery, it took once I activated this gene I have, it took me 20 years to get sober. I wasn't I went to someone and I got fixed and it didn't happen that way. It took a long time, but recovery to me, I have to put for addiction for myself, it's the number one thing in my life, right? I have to put that number one, and I have to work at it every day. And if I do that, I have a good life, And there's all kinds of help, and there is always people willing to help, and that's the biggest thing, There's always, if it's your friend, if someone's hurt and don't, no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to, everybody wants to keep this stuff in, and that's what hurts, And that's the biggest thing. When I was out there, I didn't know what addiction was. I didn't know I was addicted to anything. I just thought I was having a good time and things would be the same, but eventually progression leads to addiction, right? Then you get to that point, and now you're really stuck, And for me, I had to really get honest with myself. You got to be honest that you're hurting, and there's help out there, and people are willing to help. And I think the biggest thing is, if you're hurting, say something to someone, say something, and there'll be people to help you.
Yeah, so at Movember, we have a tool called Movember Conversations, and something that you just said that really struck a chord with me is having that conversation, having that difficult conversation. How do you approach a conversation like that with one of your friends, one of your teammates?
Yeah, the hardest thing is admitting that someone has a problem in your family. No one wants to talk about, the family stuff, the addictions. No one really wants to get in front of it, and that's hard. It's a hard thing. But there's so many people now that struggle from addiction, mental illness. There's so many different, there's so many different things going on out there, and life's not easy, right? Life is hard. It's not an easy thing, but the biggest thing is to get out in front of it. Like if, I can sit here and talk about it, and but we need to get out in front. You need to talk about it to people. You need to spread the word. All I can say, if you're hurting, you got to tell someone, because things happen. We just saw the football player. It's real stuff, right? This is it's not fun stuff. It's real, And if you're willing to make that first step and talk to someone, then they'll be help for you, and you can take your first step. And I had to go to treatment, and I had to do the whole thing, the whole process, and it didn't happen the first time for me. I can tell you that right now. It's a long process. It took me almost 15, 20 years to get sober, to stay sober. But it's a day at a time for me, and it's just about living today, right? What do we have? We can't worry about tomorrow. It's not here. Yesterday's gone, right? So we gotta take it a day at a time, and the bigger, we can all see that, but the biggest thing is you have to, if you're hurting, you have to tell someone. Tell your friend, tell your dad, tell your sister, tell anybody, right? Because then they'll help you, and then you can get on your way. And that's the biggest thing is awareness that is there. People suffer. It's not a bad thing. That's just that's what happens. With certain people. Like I said, I didn't know I had this. I was 28 years old, never touched a drug in my life, never knew what drugs were. And I decided to try this thing one night for some reason. I was at the top of the world. I was the first team All-Star. I was winning Stanley Cups. And all of a sudden, my life, you can look at my card, you can look at my hockey card. It goes this way. That night in New York, and it goes this way. It took a long time, but it's all about, it's all about talking. You gotta speak up for yourself.
Yeah, and on talking, Movember has a program called Breaking the Ice. So we go into locker rooms, we talk to coaches, parents, and kids, and there's a couple kids in the audience here.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate those conversations and get that awareness in the dressing room?
Yeah, and I think, it's about guys that know about what they're doing. It's about people talking about it, willing to take 10 minutes, and everybody. The biggest way we learn about other person's problems is they talk about it, right? There has to be enough people out there, and there is enough people out there to share their story. I just have to tell the truth. I just have to go out and tell the truth what happened to me. It might not happen to you, but this is what happened to me. It's about, it's about you can't just try like for addiction stuff. You can't go out there one night and decide you want to try something. I have 3 older kids, 28, 27, 25, and they're right in the middle of all that, going out at night, having fun, all that stuff. There's no bad decision. You can't make a bad decision. When I was around, you could make a bad decision. You wake up the next day, you're all right. Now, I know a lot of hockey players, I know a lot of guys that made one bad decision that night and they didn't wake up the next day, And that's the consequences of this whole thing. So it's really, really, really important that, we get this out there and we talk about it because it's about awareness. It's not about, we're not going to arrest our way out of this. People aren't going to get arrested, drug, whatever. It's about you. It's about what you hear, and that you got to be smart enough, to stay away from that stuff. And that's all about different ways. Hang around positive people. Don't hang around negative people. Don't hang around people that are doing it. But it has to be talked about, and that's the biggest thing. And how we do that, I don't know. I can only do what I can do. I can get out and talk about it. Everybody, we got to get other people to get out and talk about it, and they do. But it has to be talked about. We have to spread the word that there is help, and if you need help, you need to get out there and talk about it.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That's a big part of Movember as well, and it's really important for everyone to have these conversations. So I'll end it with one question here. Looking back on your career as a Stanley Cup champion, as an advocate, what's something you want young players that are getting into the sport to take from what you've learned?
Well, I think the biggest thing for athletes, we're all here. You don't have to be like I made it to be a pro player and all that stuff. It's still all about having fun, right? Still all the game. I played it to have fun, and I was lucky enough to become a professional player. But it's still all. It's just we all can play on different teams, different levels. Being on a team or not being. It's just a lot of fun to be part of something, right? And to be part of a team. And I love being in the locker room. I love being around guys. I love being around my teammates. That was a bigger thing for me than winning. I just want to be part of that team, and that can happen at any level. And but if you get anything about today or whatever, it's just the whole mental health addiction. It's all about your awareness, and you have to say something. If you're hurting, if you see someone hurting, don't say, "Oh, he'll be okay. He might just be hurting, or he'll be okay." Step up and say something. What's the big deal? You might be saving that guy's life, and I've seen it happen before. And everybody wants to be quiet and make sure everybody's okay. It's not about that. When it's mental health and addiction and all this stuff, it's life or death. For me, it's life or death because addiction, I can't be out there. It's all life or death stuff. So it's important that we talk about this stuff, and however we get to that point, we get there, right? So.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much. I know it's not always easy sharing this kind of stuff, but it's really important to get that message across. For folks listening, if you're learning and want to learn how to have conversations about mental health in sports, you can check out Movember.ca. There was also a lot of conversations today that might have triggered something. Movember.ca has all of the resources you need for support. Kevin, thank you so much. I also want to thank eBay so much for having us here today. Go over to the eBay booth and you can bid on some awesome memorabilia, and all proceeds for those QR-coded Movember products will go to the Movember Foundation. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Kevin, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.